Nicholas Merkinson. That's right, my goat, or rather Ron DeSantis' goat, or he thinks Ron DeSantis is the goat. Earlier today, Twitch partner Nickmercs was banned this morning, I guess, or midnight last night at 12:03 a.m., 6/28/24. And a lot of people were like, what the fuck? Why is this happening? Why did he get banned? Well, it turns out he actually very openly revealed why he got banned. Banned for using the word T-word, I'm not going to say it, on Twitch. Apparently, that's a derogatory term. That's on me. Next time, I'll use mental health disorder. Jake Lucky says, this might surprise some of you, but he's had quite a few rants on trans people for a couple of weeks now. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think Nickmercs understands personally that he is now absolutely the turf brain, terminal brain poison. I've talked about this a bit. The normative position, the broad majority's position is that, like, I don't really understand this trans stuff. I don't really think about it. It's kind of weird. I don't get it. This doesn't mean it's the correct position. It's just the position of the population. Everybody understands it. It's like slightly transphobic, but for the most part, it's just like, I don't really know. And there's two routes you can go. Okay, beyond that, you can either go the route of like, let me investigate what this is about, and then you learn about trans people, you learn that they're just like normal. It's just like, think of it like gay plus, okay? If you're a normie and you've never encountered a trans person and you don't fully understand it, maybe you're a little scared, right? And then you find out about it and you're like, oh, okay, it's whatever. It's just like another type of person. You know what I mean? There's many different types of people out there, right? There's Republicans out there. So you either go on that path and then you don't become a transphobic weirdo, or you lean into the fears that you have and you look at trans people and you're like, oh my God, this is like undermining everything that I've learned about gender, without any care or consideration to like maybe the things you learned about gender and the social conditioning you have on it is faulty. And you just go, nope, I'm not, society's wrong. I'm not wrong. I cannot be wrong. In my heart of hearts, I know I'm right. And then you start becoming increasingly more and more transphobic until you are more invested the comings and goings of trans people. You start watching Matt Walsh. You start becoming more and more hateful while you don't even realize you're being hateful. You think this is like so unimaginably fucked up that like society doesn't immediately put an end to this nonsense, this trans stuff, right? Ultimately, you arrive on what I like to call turf brain, where you increasingly become more pathologically obsessed with trans people, even though they comprise a minuscule percentage of the population, like a really, really tiny percentage of the population. They occupy increasingly larger parts of your mind. You also don't know anything about biology. You don't recognize that there's like intersex people, for example. God forbid you even try to consider that. Your brain is going to explode. And you become increasingly more agitated and you start talking about this, right? You start talking about it all the time. Maybe even you think that you're making a brave position, like you're taking a stance, you're putting your foot down. Society has to stop with this nonsense. Happens to a lot of people. And it becomes increasingly harder to pull you out turf brain once you have like reached terminal velocity of turf brain. And I think Nick is just slowly but surely going through the steps. He's at like he's pretty deeply invested in the transphobia stuff at this point, because he went from like, oh, live and let live, brother. I don't really care. Like the gay stuff, it wears me out, but like who gives a shit? Using the term, the T word, right? I'm not going to say it because technically a slur, and also I don't want to get banned. He has like increasingly agitated himself to constantly talk about this. This should not occupy your mind at all. Like not even a little bit. To Nickmercs, I say, there are a million things that happen in the world that you don't understand. This is another one of them. If you obsess this much over any number of those things, like math, for example, or the fact that Spartans were pedophiles, despite the fact that you have them as your logo. Like there's so much stuff in the world that you don't understand. Every day of the week, things are happening and you can't make sense of it at all. Why occupy your brain to this degree? Why get this mad? Just leave it alone, brother. Leave it alone. If you can't comprehend it, just leave it alone. Leave trans people alone. Stop talking about trans people. I promise it's good for your career. I promise it's good for your mental health. Like it's just good across the board. June is a hard month for conservatives. They're talking about it a little more than usual. Yeah. So that's my take for people that are just like not realizing that they're entering this like dangerous area. Dangerous in the sense that it's like not just dangerous for your financial prospects, because you're being like a hateful person. And before you realize it, you become more and more invested in this hatred. And like for even normal people who also might agree with you, even they think you're weird because they're like, okay, bro, like chill out. Nobody wants to hear you talk about trans people every fucking day. Sancho V's had a really funny take though. I liked it. I loved it. Banned for using the T word on Twitch. Apparently that's a derogatory term. Next time I'll use a mental health disorder. Nick, mate, I think I speak on behalf of everybody when I say the only LGBT we support is lager, Greg's, beans and toast. The hell with these woke tossers. Shoulder back, a couple stellas, and you'll be live again before you know it. Love from Plymouth. This is not an actual oi, bro. It's Sancho V's chat. He's memeing. Why do you think he isn't gone, completely gone on the turf side? Oh no, he is. He has like deteriorating transphobia brain. He's already on like a later stage of it where he's constantly talking about trans people and like actually incurring like financial punishments for it at this point. The next stage is basically when you start transvestigating people. Okay. Once you're in the transvestigation stage, you become like completely insane. You're like hallucinating. You're seeing trans people in every corner. You start suspecting people that are otherwise cis of being trans. The truth is that gender is a spectrum. It's not a binary, and it's a social construct. And gender norms throughout time have changed. Gender norms right now are different from culture to culture. That's why if you look at like what is like a sexy man, for example, in Korea, is entirely different. It's like way more androgynous, way more feminine in comparison to what is considered as like a sexy man in the United States of America or in the Western world. And obviously like the things that we wear or our hairstyle, like things like that have changed as well. If you look at the founding fathers, they were wearing powdered wigs. They would put makeup on, rosy ass cheeks, they were dressed up gay as hell. And so all of that stuff is malleable and changes dramatically throughout time and even is different even in the same time, right? When you falsely make the assertion that like gender and sex, I guess, which is also not binary, are exactly the same and these are like impossible to remove from one another, you're operating on a complete falsehood. Gender is not as black and white or as simple as the way people try to understand it or the way that people try to reinforce it. You ultimately end up thinking that a whole bunch of cis women are actually trans women and vice versa. Does that make sense? Let's be honest. When did you think of an assumption and it was wrong and then you corrected it? Great question. I had transphobic opinions. So there you go. Many, many years ago. It's an unfortunate byproduct of our social conditioning. So yeah, that's actually one issue that I'm very open about. Do you think some people can't come back once the brain is so broken? No, I think all people can come back. All people can come back, no matter what. And even if someone is like impossible to change the minds on, you shouldn't give up hope on changing their minds in general. The only exception I make is like people that professionally do this. Those people are getting a bag by behaving like this. You know what I mean?